Hi there, and welcome to the VOW for Girls community. Happy New Year. We're so deeply grateful for your time today and joining us for this conversation and all the support you've offered us over these past few years. 2024 was a really pivotal year for girls worldwide. Across the globe, we saw both significant progress and significant challenges as girls work to determine their futures. Today, we're going to reflect on the year behind us, talk about what 2025 holds for girls globally, and especially for the 12 million girls who are at risk of child marriage this year. In today's conversation, we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to remind you why VOW for Girls exists. We're going to talk a bit about the global context in which girls are living and the challenges that they face. We're going to share some updates with you about VOW's progress and preview some exciting new initiatives that we have for 2025, as well as some ways that you can get involved and help us. I really want to encourage your questions. As we go through today's conversation, something comes to mind that you want to know, I encourage you to hit the button for the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Type it right in there. Our team is going to be collecting questions as we go through today's conversation. The other way that I would encourage you to use the Q&A feature is to share ways that you can help. As we're talking about different things across today's conversation, people may come to mind that you want to introduce to this cause. Another way that you might be able to help come to mind, go ahead and share that with our team along with your name, and someone will follow up with you on that. But please pose us your questions. I'm really happy to be joined in this conversation by VOW's founder and board chair, Mabel von Oranje. Hi, Mabel. Many of you know Mabel, but she's a serial entrepreneur for social change, and she's so committed to advancing equality, freedom, and justice around the world. She's played a catalytic role in the global movement to end child marriage, including the founding of VOW for Girls. Mabel, I'm so glad that you're able to join us for this conversation today.
I'm really happy we're doing this. I love the idea that we're bringing the community together. I mean, those of you who know me know that I really believe that we can all make a difference, but nobody can do it alone. And so to be together with some of our, our co-changers of the world is wonderful. So hello, everybody who's here.
Great. Thank you so much. Before we reflect a little on 2024 and preview 2025, let's go back and start at the very beginning. What motivated you to create VOW for Girls?
Well, I guess everybody who's on this conversation, on this call, knows that 12 million girls are getting married every year, which is one girl every 3 seconds. And I've been working on this issue for, now almost 15 years. When we created VOW for Girls, it was almost 10 years. One of the things that struck me is that this is not just a huge human rights abuse, but this also is having a huge impact on, girls out of school, girls getting pregnant before they're physically really ready to have babies, girls becoming the victims of domestic violence. And I realized this is a crazy problem, because it's holding not just these girls back, but it's holding families and their communities back. It kind of means that people can't live themselves out of poverty. And what we realized is what you really need if you want to create change is make sure that the people on the ground, in the communities where these girls live, where these decisions get made, that they get the power to change it. And so I wanted to really see more money going to these grassroots activities in Africa, Asia, Latin America. And people would always ask me, what can we do? What can we do? And then one day I go to this wedding, and, a week before the wedding, panic. What should I wear? What does the couple want to get? So I go to their wedding website and I see that they are saying, look, either buy a present from this registry list or give to this good cause. And that for me was that light bulb moment where I was like, wait, what if we connect celebrations in the wealthy West, so to say, anywhere in the world, of people who are celebrating love, and turn them into easy fundraisers so that girls elsewhere in the world can also, live the lives they want to live and choose love on their own terms. This is partially because I strongly believe, I have 2 daughters, they are now 19 and 18. And I just think, they choose who to be with, whether to have boyfriends, whether to one day get married. And I think every girl anywhere in the world deserves that chance. So that's what's been driving me.
Thank you for sharing. I want to remind our listeners that we'd love to hear your questions. Use the chat function. Just submit them as we're going through. Mabel, you've been working on this issue of child marriage for more than 15 years now. 2024, we saw both a lot of setbacks and important victories around the world. Can you give us a little bit of context about VOW's work today? What's the situation for girls in 2025?
I think it's fair to say it's a mixed bag. On the one hand, we've seen some real progress in the last decade on ending child marriage, because there's people who are skeptical. They're like, oh, this is such a complex issue, you can't make progress. And actually, we've seen the numbers go down from out of every 4 girls globally becoming a child bride to 1 out of every 5 girls. So we know progress is possible, but we've also, like you said, Clay, we have seen real challenges. There are challenges related to climate, there are challenges related to conflict, to the aftermath of the COVID pandemic, and then to conservatism. So these are in a way the 4 C's. And what we see with all of these things, it's girls and women who are the first victims when climate disasters happen, when there is war, etc. And so think about what's happening in Afghanistan. Think about the fact that in Iraq they're talking about a law that would bring the age of child marriage down to, I believe it's 9 years old. So there are a bunch of challenges, and then we've also seen various donors, both government donors as well as private donors, cutting their support for girls and women. But at the same time, I have to say I'm hopeful. We've also seen, despite the setbacks, we've seen wins. Look at what's happened recently in, for example, Colombia and in Sierra Leone, where they have outlawed child marriage. What makes me most hopeful is I've had the luck of visiting some of the countries where the money that VOW raises is spending the money on the ground. And you go to these really far away communities and you meet the girls and you meet the boys and the fathers and the teachers and the local chiefs and the religious leaders. And you just see that there's activists all over the world, people who are working to actually change the life of girls and make it possible for girls to really make their own choices in life. So that makes me really optimistic. There are change makers everywhere, and many of them we will never know their names in a way. Like they're not famous, but they do make sure that things really change. And so looking in a way where we are at with the broader agenda, but I also want to ask you, Clayton, some things about where you believe VOW is at. But I think looking at the broader agenda, we need to do everything we can to keep girls and women, but especially adolescent girls on the global agenda. And that it isn't like, because there are so many other challenges in the world which also deserve attention, that once again, adolescent girls are basically thrown under the bus. That is not fair. And it is also, in the end, it's stupid, because we do know that girls and women lift people, their families out of poverty. And as I said earlier on, I believe that we can all make a difference. Nobody of us can do it alone. And through VOW, we have created a mechanism, not just to fundraise for this work, but also to keep this issue on the agenda. And in these challenging times, we collectively can make a difference that otherwise wouldn't be possible. And I strongly believe that every girl deserves those opportunities. So that's kind of the context in which we're operating. But Clay, is it okay if I ask you 1 or 2 questions about what VOW is doing and how it's going?
Absolutely. Before you do, I just want to say, I love and I share your optimism, and girls need us to hold that optimism for this coming year and the years ahead, certainly.
Yeah, they do. And look, I suspect everybody on this call knows the power of girls and women, and so let's make sure that they can unleash the power that they have. Anyway, but Clay, so all this is happening in the world. Then we have VOW for Girls. 2024 was the 5th year in which you were leading the organization. I am incredibly grateful for your leadership. I love working with you. I love the positivism with which you work, and in fact, so many of us. But before we look ahead, what's going to come, can you give us a bit of an idea of how you look at how 2024 was for VOW for Girls?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm really proud of the work that Val and our community did this past year, especially in bringing new supporters to this issue of child marriage. Like, we're constantly educating people about how this is happening, why it's happening, what they can do. I feel like we made a lot of progress in that this year. And we made a lot of progress in trying and testing new approaches to mobilize funding and support for these girls in communities. A couple of moments really stand out to me as I think about this past year. One of them is certainly when Mabel, when you and I were able to visit Dominican Republic and see some of the organizations that we've been supporting for more than 5 years there. While we were there, we spent time with a woman named Johanny, who we had met back in 2019 before the pandemic. It was incredible to see her and to see her thriving in her community. And then this summer in Uganda, our team spent time with Jessica, who we met just before the pandemic in 2020. I got to spend some time back then with her and her mother, and our team was able to see Jessica now, experience her life. Both of these girls live in circumstances that put them at great risk of child marriage. And their risk was even higher due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But when we saw them this year, they were exactly where we wanted them to be, doing exactly what they should be, which was that they're in school and they're focused on their futures and that they're making their own decisions about what they're going to do next. And that's great to see. And it's thanks to the support of these incredible local organizations that we're able to support with the funding that our community helps us raise. And I'm excited that this year we're now supporting, along with the Girls First Fund, these local organizations in 15 countries around the world. It's a big increase over the last year in terms of the number of geographies where we're reaching girls. And I'm so inspired by the work that these local leaders are doing to change the way that their communities are thinking about child marriage. And this is all happening because of the incredible community of supporters that we have, right? No doubt. We're able to work with some incredible philanthropists, but also incredible individuals who are donating $10 a month to make this work possible. And this is an issue where every dollar really counts and every dollar goes really far in these communities where we're investing the funds. I'm so proud this year of some of our bigger partnerships. Like Justin Alexander continues to be just a spectacular partner in helping us raise visibility with women who are getting married and raising funds through their promotion where they have an accessories line that benefits VOW, sold in thousands of boutiques worldwide. And every time an accessory is sold, $10 comes to the cause. It's really a phenomenal partnership for us. I see people like Emily Campbell, who's a wedding planner who's supported us for a really long time, one of our VOW ambassadors and one of our greatest champions. She introduced us to a couple this year that aligned their wedding with us and raised more than 15,000 US dollars, which was just really a joy to see them do that. And we were so grateful to partner with them. And then we see everyday couples who are coming in to support us. There's a couple named Allison and Colton this year. They learned about us through their local bridal boutique, and their wedding raised more than $3,000 to help end child marriage. Really, really incredible. And then lastly, I would point out that we launched the VOW Ambassador program this year, and where we continue to see such enthusiasm for helping us socialize this idea, for helping us educate people about this issue and the challenges girls are facing. And we're so lucky to be able to leverage these diverse voices in helping more people understand this issue.
Wonderful. I mean, and I must say, anybody who is interested in joining that ambassador program and isn't an ambassador yet, very welcome. I mean, this is we believe in inclusivity, so everybody who wants to be part of this is very welcome to join it. But congratulations, Clay, to you and your team of what you're making possible and making it possible for all of us to contribute. So that's really great. Can you share with us a little bit then what your plans are for this year and beyond, and how you see VOW's unique role in this bigger ecosystem of organizations working to help and support girls?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way I think about 2025, we have two really big jobs. One is to continue to raise awareness about this like really significant problem that girls are facing around the world. And it's an issue that too few people understand and know about. And we can't have people take action on this unless they know that it's happening. So our team's thinking a lot about how do we continue to raise awareness with like different audiences that can really become part of this movement and really do something with us to make a real difference. The second big job that we have is in mobilizing funding and really thinking how we can mobilize significant new money so we can reach more girls in more geographies, continue to support this incredible network of largely women-led organizations who are directly engaging with girls, their families, community leaders, and giving them paths that don't involve child marriage for their lives. And I'll give you a couple examples of things that we're doing in both of those. First of all, on the awareness side, we have a new initiative that we're kicking off for Valentine's Day this year, which Mabel, I know that you're excited about because you and I talk about it every day. So we're thinking about the future of it.
You're gonna love this. Listen carefully. I'm like so excited about this.
Yeah, so for Valentine's Day this year, we're kicking off a new initiative from VOW called "Every Girl Deserves Happily Ever After." Stacey Abrams is a friend of VOW for Girls, and in addition to being a public advocate, is also a romance novelist. She brought us this idea about uniting the romance fiction community around ending child marriage, because the opposite of romance in so many ways is child marriage. And that has led to an incredible sort of wave of movement from that community that will launch the week of Valentine's Day. So the week of February 10, globally, where we're bringing together publishers, authors, bookstores, artists, so many people who are part of this romance fiction community. You might ask, why romance fiction? Like, I think it's really clear. These stories that they love and that they follow really embody love, freedom, empowerment, these values that are deeply aligned with VOW's mission to end child marriage and to unleash the potential of girls around the world. And in this campaign, the happily ever after is our hero girls being able to make the choices that they want for their future. So I'm really excited about it. Many of our new partners for this campaign are on this call to learn more about VOW. So thank you for all that you're doing for that. And people will be able to experience it online and also in many local markets, because there are a lot of bookstore events. So we'll share more information with the community around how to engage with that. Then as we think about mobilizing funding, really the big priority for us this year is how do we really scale up the amount of funding that we are raising with couples who are aligning their celebrations with VOW. So we've had some incredible couples that we have been able to partner with over the last 5 years who make us part of their celebration. They create what we call a charitable registry that stands beside their gift list, and they ask their friends and family for donations in celebration of this big moment in their lives. And we want to see our work around that really accelerate this year. So to give you a sense of the opportunity, like in the US alone, each year there are 2 million weddings that happen. And if we could get just 1% of those weddings to align with VOW in some way, we raise really significant funding, more than $20 million, based on the ways that we're raising funds today with couples. So that's our big focus, and so much of our team's time is spent around how do we get in front of more people who are planning celebrations? How do we meet them with this opportunity in a way that really appeals to them? And anyone who's on the call has ideas and wants to talk about that, I would love to engage with you on it. Drop us a note in the Q&A. But we're really going to accelerate those efforts this year, see lots more couples take this action with us, and therefore be able to invest more money in these communities around the world. We have a small but mighty team at VOW for Girls, and we're ambitious and we're thinking big, and we're excited to dig in this year.
Great, Clay. Before we open it up for questions, and please, if you have a question, put it in the chat box. But before we open up, Clay, you know, I always like clarity and very clear calls to action. What can we do? And so you mentioned some of the bigger activities that are going on, but anybody who's here and who wants to contribute, very concretely, what would you like people to do?
Yeah. So we're going to send you an email after this webinar that gives you links and ideas for ways you can activate. But we really want your help in raising awareness and raising funds. So we want you to tell your friends and family about VOW for Girls. Like over the holidays, there were lots and lots and lots of people who got engaged to be married in the coming 2 years. The time between Christmas and New Year's is always a peak engagement season, especially in the US. You likely know someone who got engaged. Like, please invite them to partner with VOW around their wedding. We'd love to talk to them about it. We'd also love for you to participate in our Every Girl Deserves Happily Ever After campaign the week of Valentine's Day and in the days leading up to Valentine's Day. You can share content about the campaign from VOW for Girls on any of your social media platforms. Or maybe instead of thinking about a traditional Valentine's Day gift this year, or in addition to a traditional Valentine's Day gift this year, you know, make a gift that helps support a girl to make her own choices about love and marriage, and helps her stay in school. And then,
so Clay,
yes.
No red-hearted chocolates or beautiful red roses for me this year.
Let's skip the chocolates, skip the teddy bears. Let's support girls instead. And then, you know, across the year, anyone who's listening, we would, of course, love your financial support in any way that you can offer. Like, every little bit helps. The dollars that we raise go really far in the communities where we're working. And we'd be incredibly proud to partner with you in that way. Like I said, an email that you'll receive after this call will give you links to these things, share more ideas with you. And if there are other ways that you think you can help, we'd love to hear those too.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. That's very clear marching orders, I would think. And I hope I have lots of secret admirers who are going to spoil me with donations to VOW on the 14th of February.
I love it. I love it. Let's go into some Q&A. Our team is chatting us some questions here. Our friend Veronica, we know Veronica, just sent us a question. What would you say is the tipping point / catalyst, like in Colombia or Sierra Leone, to pass bills to end child marriage?
I have to admit, on both the cases, I know the general outline of what happened. I don't know the details, but if so, I'm very happy to look into the specifics. But what we see where change happens, that kind of, you know, changing the laws, it's often a combination of non-governmental organizations really making a strong case for why passing a law that says 18 is the minimum age of marriage, no exceptions, is the right thing to do. So that there's NGO, civil society that makes that case, and that you then also often you see that there then one or a small group of legislators, of members of Congress or ministers who are enlightened and who kind of say like, okay, we start driving this. I mean, we all know that the change that we see in our lives, it's often small groups of people who feel passionate about something and then help to convince, you know, wider groups of people, or in this case, you know, national parliaments, to change the laws that need to happen. So I suspect that is what happened. And it's interesting because one of the things we've seen with the projects that VOW is supporting, you know, there was a project, for example, in Nepal, which was at a municipal level, and the money was going to an NGO that was working a non-governmental organization that was working closely together with a school there. And that, you know, generated a whole lot of activity around empowering girls, helping girls and boys to understand about sexuality, engaging with parents, etc. But the municipal officials, the local mayor and the local assembly bosses, councillors, they were so proud that in their community, this grant had been given to this school and to this non-governmental organization, that this had completely inspired them as the mayor and as the local authorities to kind of now say, look, in our community, we really need to end child marriage. We want to be proud of it. So this spillover effect is so incredibly interesting. And then you get to that tipping point where it is from, oh, in this community, of course, girls are married by, for example, 14, to, oh, in this community, of course, we will not marry our daughters until they're 18. And that kind of, once you hit that tipping point, you'll never go back. And that's why I believe that you can, in the end, end child marriage in the whole world. Because the more we get these tipping points going, the more that will kind of spread. And at some point there's just no more child marriage there.
Yeah, I love that. Something that I read in the coverage of the Columbia law that outlawed child marriage is that the activists there had been working for 17 years on that initiative. They had tried 15 times to pass it previously and failed and kept at it. Like that sort of like tenacity and like feeling so resolute about this that you keep coming back year after year, push for it until it ultimately success. Like just wow, like what a story. What a story. Here's a good sort of foundational question that was submitted. Um, when we say the words child marriage, what does that mean exactly? How are we defining child marriage?
Um, When I started working on child marriage, I was working with a group called the Elders that Nelson Mandela had created. And it's a group of former head of states, retired. Some of them are still alive, some of them passed away, including Archbishop Tutu. Desmond Tutu was part of the group. President Jimmy Carter, who recently died, was part of the group. But also people like Mary Robinson, still alive, was there, the former president of Ireland. And they had a discussion about this issue. Like, should 16 be acceptable? Is it 18? What should it be? And then at some point, they concluded very clearly, like, look, there are very few treaties in the world that have been ratified by the whole world, but the Convention on the Right of the Child has been ratified by all countries in the world, minus one. And that convention very clearly defines a child as, anybody under the age of 18. And so it was a feeling like, look, that's very clear. Let's adhere to that. And I must say, I found it quite strange that people sometimes say like, oh, but 16 should be okay. And because I'm thinking, wait, we do not trust young people with the right to vote until they're 18. In most countries, you can't drive a car till you're 18. In most countries, you cannot buy a house or sign other legal contracts until you're 18. You're not allowed to drink until you're 18. And so why, if we don't trust young people until the age of 18 to do all these things, why would we then think it's okay that marriage, which is much more consequential, lifelong consequential potentially, would be okay at an earlier age? So that's where the 18 minimum comes from.
Yeah, great. Thanks for sharing that. We have a question submitted from Hope. Hope leads one of our local organizations in Uganda. I'm a huge fan of hers. I hope. Hope asks, how can local organizations share more of their stories about change and challenges? We would definitely all the time want to hear stories about how you're succeeding and how girls are succeeding thanks to the work that you're doing. Please lift them up to us. You can WhatsApp or email me or tag us on any social media platforms where you're sharing. We'll reshare your content. We love to lift up these stories that you're making possible. And thank you so much for doing the work. Definitely. Love that.
You hope it's one of these people who just keeps going at it. And, some days
Truly.
things are really going well. Sometimes there's setbacks, but she will not give up.
Yeah, definitely. Very inspiring. Sure. We're checking in with our team here. We have other questions to share. Here's one. Oh, from Lena and Tom. Hi, Lena and Tom. We talk a lot about poverty being a factor in child marriage, but how much is culture / tradition / religion a barrier to Val's work?
I have a go at that first, Clay.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes, please.
so, Lena and Tom, nice to meet you. In some communities, tradition and religion and are part of this. very explicitly. I've seen communities where parents just marry their daughters off because that's how it has been done generation after generation. And in those communities, often the best way of tackling it is if people were trusted by the community, not outsiders like me walking into a community, sit down with the community and talk about, like, why this seems to be the right thing to do, but it is actually harmful and has negative consequences. And people then start thinking about, like, yeah, why do we do this actually? And maybe it's better not to do this. So it is sometimes really driven by tradition. I've seen religious leaders who were part in ceremonies of marrying girls at an early age. I've also seen religious leaders who actually stand up against child marriage and basically say that in none of the holy scriptures of the major religions does it say, hey, marry your daughters off before the age of 18. This is cool. So they can be advocates for or against child marriage sometimes. But where there is, I think, a norm issue, and so sometimes child marriage is not driven by these things, but driven by poverty, by lack of education opportunities, by concerns about sexuality, that the girl will get pregnant before marriage and dishonor herself or the family. But what I do think is fair to say is that it is always related to gender inequality. That feeling that girls, or not the feeling, the belief, the attitudes that girls are less than boys. And for example, if you go to a place like India, people just bluntly keep telling you, like, oh, girls are a burden. You need to get rid of them as quickly as you can. That word burden, burden, burden. And I mean, we all know girls are powerhouses, and to the contrary, not burdens, but actually yeah, change maker. So going back to the question, it is definitely a factor, and needs to be tackled, but depends a bit on the community. And this is why the approach that VOW does is so important, because the money that we spend, it's not like we're telling communities what to do. No, we're empowering communities to inform us what they want to do with the money. And of course, that's monitored and making sure that it makes sense. But they know best how you create, change. It's the same, like, a little bit, think of your own community. You want to do something around, I don't know, fire safety. You're not going to ask people from Bangladesh to tell you how to do that. You're going to figure out the solutions to your own problems. So anyway, I see more questions coming in.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, you mentioned Bangladesh. The second part of Leda and Tom's question is, can we recap the 15 countries? So I'll share that in the first few years of us doing this work with the Girls First Fund, focused on 6 countries. Those are Dominican Republic, India, DRC, Niger, Nepal, and Uganda. So a mix of geographies between Latin America, Asia, Africa. New countries that we added over the last year include Mexico, Nigeria, Pakistan, Haiti, Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea, Guatemala, and Bangladesh. So really excited to see further expansion in those parts of the world and communities that we're supporting. So very exciting. And we'll include a link to that list also in the recap email. Another question we have here is, I'm curious about how VOW is able to send 100% of the money it raises from celebrations, weddings, to local programs. Do you mind taking that one, Mabel?
Happy to do that, because I'm incredibly grateful that we are able to do that. So any company, any couple contributing to VOW for Girls, all that money gets spent in the countries where change is happening, in Africa and Asia and Latin America. And that is possible because we have a group of very generous donors, some of them who are on this call, who basically support the operational funding for VOW. So they make sure that Clay and his colleagues have salaries, that we can update the website, that we can, basically the money to run the operation. And that's, of course, a very generous of them, that we can then say, like, hey, all the money that gets raised goes to the projects on the ground.
Yeah, definitely. Great. Another question we got in is, I know someone who just got engaged. What does it practically mean for a couple to include VOW in their celebration? I'll handle that one. So there's no one way for a couple to do this with us, but there is a way that we've seen the most couples partner with us for the most impact, which is the creation of what we call a charitable registry, which stands either beside your gift list or instead of your gift list for couples who don't want gifts. And the charitable registry is a page that couples can share with their friends and family who are attending their weddings, inviting them to join them in supporting this cause and making an impact alongside their big day. So it's an experience that can be personalized for the couple. They can, show their image. They can share about why this is important to them, and like really make it easy for their friends and family to contribute. And then couples who do that with us after their wedding receive a customized impact report about the impact of their celebration, what the funds are going to do, and the difference that it's making in the world. So we love doing that with couples, and we would love for you to refer couples into us. So thanks for that question. Another question is, we both mentioned grassroots organizations in many countries. Why do we think that this is an important approach? Why grassroots organizations?
You want me to have a go at it, Claire, or will you do it?
You can do that one.
Well, it's in a way very simple. It's in the end the girls who are at risk of marriage. You need to reach them, and you don't. If it was just by having laws or UN, treaties or something, then child marriage wouldn't exist anymore, because most countries actually do have laws that say no child marriage. Take India, which has the biggest absolute number of child brides in the world. They've had a law for more than 100 years that says 18 is the minimum age of marriage for girls and 21 for boys, and nobody adheres to it. And so if you want to create that change, you can't just top down say this is not okay. Yes, laws can really help, because then people in communities can say, look, there is a law, so what we're doing is no longer okay. But you then also need to see whether there are other reasons why child marriage is happening. We discussed some of them earlier, lack of secondary education, lack of sexuality education, how to avoid unwanted pregnancies, dealing with traditional thoughts and beliefs. And so you really need to tackle that on the ground. And you can only do that by people who understand why it's empowering people, who understand why it's happening in a community, what needs to change in order to, to happen in order to change it, and who holds the power of change. Is that the local chief? Is that the local religious leader? Is it the parents? Is it, is it the school? And often it's a mixture. And so by supporting these local organizations, and the money they need is often very small, but by supporting those, they can really effectively do that work. So we know that's where really the money has the biggest impact.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing that.
I want to come back to this. How do you vow your wedding and everything, and the fact that so many people got engaged? Because I was actually quite surprised in the last 2 weeks about how many friends and family and people who I work with told me, I live in London, but also in the Netherlands. Oh, this person is getting married. Oh, my daughter is getting married. So somebody who I know who officiates many weddings was like, so I'm like, don't forget to vow. And people are very enthusiastic to learn this. But also I find it funny, because some people who go to weddings, they're like, oh, thank you for sharing this, because I don't know what to give the couple, and now I know I'm going to give them a donation to VOW in their honor. And they are like, okay, you helped me solve all my headaches about what kind of presents to buy. So it's fun to see how excited people get.
Definitely. And you're right. It's like a really easy way for people who are attending events and need to supply a gift to provide a meaningful gift to hosts and to those who are convening them. So thanks for raising that back up. Definitely. Here's our last question, which is, as you look ahead, what is sustaining your sense of hope or optimism? I'll start by saying, for me, I think every day about conversations I've had with girls who are in these communities where we're funding work, and the local women who are leading those programs, and the seeing firsthand and hearing from them the real difference that the support that we've been able to offer is making in their work, and being able to really expand the number of girls that they interact with, and to help girls navigate futures that are free of child marriage. And that's the thing that sustains me every day as we push to build this movement and to build this community to support girls. How about you, Mabel?
I guess for me, it goes back to something you mentioned earlier about this organization in Colombia that had been at this law for 15 attempts in 17 years. And that reminded me of how we as humans always seem to overestimate what we can achieve in the short term, but we completely underestimate what we can achieve in the long term. And I think we're all, in this fast-paced world, we look for instant gratification, et cetera, et cetera. But here, what keeps me so hopeful is the fact that I know by patiently keeping working at this, we're hitting one tipping point after another and creating change for girls in a way that helps to realize this vision where every girl, regardless of where she's born, regardless of her geography, regardless of whether she's born into a rich or in a poor family, where every girl has equal opportunity. And that's what I believe we all should strive for, because the fact that my girls were born to me and not in India or not in Guatemala shouldn't mean that it's just not right if that means that they have more opportunity. And what we've done with VOW is create an opportunity for everybody who wants to contribute to that more equal vision for a world, where everybody has equal opportunity, to help to contribute to that. And that makes me happy. And then that knowledge that every small donation helps, and that every girl who we keep out of marriage and in school, could become a firefighter, a doctor, a lawyer, the president of her country at some point. And so, all the small steps make a real difference. And that's just beautiful. So that keeps me really excited. And then I must say the honor of working with all of you. I mean, VOW for Girls brings together this community, which is, if you look at it from Mars, let's use another planet, but it's like, look at wedding planners, wedding photographers, working together with activists, working together with venture philanthropists who are paying for the operational dollars, working together with, companies that are doing all kinds of different work. It's a beautiful mixture of people, but I feel strongly united by the fact that we all want to create change. So I'm very, very grateful for that. And again, I can only say, if you're not part of the VOW community yet, join us. And if you are, help us grow the community.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I want to thank everyone for their time today. And Mabel, thank you for your time in joining us. Do you have any final words you want to share with the community?
I think we have said a lot. So I think we should finish this with the words of Archbishop Tutu, who was the chair of the elders when all this work started, and he kept it very simple. But I think it went to the basis of it all. Let girls be girls and not brides, and we can all make a contribution to that. And a world without child brides will be a world which is more equal, more peaceful, more wealthy, more healthy. So let's create that world. Let girls be girls, not brides.
Well said. Well said. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. As we go throughout the year, we'll have other calls to educate you about our work and about these issues that we work on. We love your suggestions about those as well. But thank you for your time today and all the ways you support us. We're so proud to partner with you.